अबरहा भी ताकत और गरूर के नशे में धुत हाथियों का लश्कर लेकर खाना खुदा पर हमले की नीयत से बढ़ा था, लेकिन अल्लाह की हिकमत तो कुछ और ही थी। अबाबीलों की कंकरियों ने अबरहा का गुरूर खाक में मिला दिया। आखिर मिट जाएगा। मुश्किल की इस घड़ी में पाकिस्तान अपने कश्मीरी भाइयों की सियासी और सफारती मदद जारी रखेगा। ये जुल्म, ये जब्र, ये बर्बरियत, ये सेनों में बिछी लाशें, ये बैन करती माएं।
You all are requested to be seated so we can start shortly.
हकीकत तक
command and staff position in Pakistan military. Sir, I would request you please to come.
Now, President AJK on his way to join us soon. And all of you, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, who have taken the trouble to be here today on a very important and a very sad occasion. When I was coming in the morning, I saw this in front of Serena Hotel, there is a clock. Day of curfew. 31 days, now 12 hours and 40 minutes. This is not the normal type of curfew. This curfew is encompassing the whole valley. It is not for one town or two towns. This is for the whole valley. A population of nearly 8 million has been made a prisoner because of this curfew. Their territory since 1947. Let me start from 1947-48, the Kashmir issue. Why were they so desperate, knowing that this is a Muslim population majority area? Why were they so desperate to get Kashmir? Expansion of the territory. Junagadh and Manavadar, 1947, December 1947. Hindu population ruled by a Muslim ruler. It was occupied. The document, Kashmir accession document, has always been in doubt, and we are told by Alistair Lamb in his book that the Maharaja was on his way from Srinagar to Jammu on the 26th of June. He was saving his life, and on 27th of October, 27th of October, the Indian troops came. So there was no way The document could have been signed on 26th. It was signed later. This caste, ladies and gentlemen, was Portuguese territory. Goa was occupied in 1961 by the Indians. In 1962, they tried to gain more territory from China, but the Chinese did not allow that to happen, and we had the Sino-Indian War in 1962. In 1971, it was naked aggression on the pretext of refugees. The Indian Army entered the erstwhile East Pakistan, and the international community kept on watching. Of Sikkim, 1975. Again, India annexed Sikkim. Siachen conflict, 1984. It was the Indians who wanted to gain more territory. The Sri Lankan invasion in 1980, but it failed. The Sri Lankans fought back. Now Ladakh. So, what is the plan? Is it Liban or is it Akhand Bharat, which has no historical precedence? There is no such thing as Akhand Bharat in history. People, ladies and gentlemen, who suffered most from the Holocaust. It is ironic that they are now Kashmir. So we must think about it. We must think what the Indians are up to. It was part of the British Empire, never part. Yes, in Chandragupta Maurya's time, that was the only empire which existed for 147 years, which they had these areas. Otherwise, there is no concept of Akhand Bharat. Even we must correct ourselves. When we say the partition of India, ladies and gentlemen, there was no partition of India. Pakistan was created from the British Empire, not from India. India came into being on 15th of August. There was no country known as India prior to 15th of August 1947. So Pakistan was created from the British Empire, and we don't have to be apologetic that we have been created from India. No. It was only two provinces, Punjab and Bengal, which were partitioned. But otherwise it was all part of the Indian Empire. Ceylon was part of the Indian Empire. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope that we will analyze, we will study, and we will see what are the Indian grand designs and what do we need to do about it. We cannot just sit and talk. We really have to do something. Thank you very much.
His Excellency Sardar Masood Khan, President Azad Jammu and Kashmir, please distribute. I request Mr. Syed Fakhri Imam. I request Regent General Amjad Shoaib. Ms. Mehreen Gul, Director, Center for Global and Strategic Studies. Now I would like to request Major General Syed Khalid Munir Jafri, President CGSS, to please come forward and present.
To stop the barbarism and enormity by the Modi government. Sir, I request you to please come forward and share your knowledge on the topic, Heaven Turned into Battleground.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Honorable Sayyid Fakhri Imam, Chairman, Kashmir Committee, General Zubair Mahmood Hayat, Chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee, Lieutenant General Amjad Shoaib, Major General Khalid Jafri, President of CGSS, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure for me to talk to you. I'll go straight to the subject. Let me take you back to 3 dates which are of seminal importance in the history of Pakistan. The first date is August the 14th, 1947, when Pakistan was created as an independent state. This date is important because Pakistan emerged on the map of the world as a sovereign state. And let me also underline that before Pakistan was created, people were taking bets that this country would not be created. And the Congress and the extremist Hindus in India were confident that once this state is created, it will collapse in 3 to 6 months. People of Pakistan would be begging India to take it back. But this miracle happened because of the will of Allah, because of the steely resolve of Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and because of the sacrifices given by the people of South Asia. This miracle happened. And let me tell you that this is a golden hour in the history of Pakistan. And let me take you back to 1947 and 48. These are the 2 years when you attain military victory, undoubted military victory. In the recent past, after the developments of August the 5th, people have been saying that Pakistan has been advocating and practicing diplomacy to resolve the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. That we have focused only on diplomatic and political means. And this policy has failed over the decades. But I always remind people that we have also fought 6 wars to liberate the occupied territory of Kashmir. The first war was fought in 1947. People have forgotten this war because of the distortions in history. I always remind my audience that the first war was fought between June 1947 and October 1947. During this period, the people of Azad Kashmir rebelled against the Maharaja of Kashmir, and unassisted, unaided, they put together a command and control structure. They had their own armed forces. They fought the Maharaja and pushed his army back. This is a battle that we won. If you hadn't won that war, you would not have Azad Kashmir. Simultaneously in November, the people of Gilgit-Baltistan rebelled, unaided, unassisted, and together the people of Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan were able to liberate 13,000 square kilometers of Azad Kashmir and 73,000 square kilometers of Gilgit-Baltistan. If that war had not been fought, you would not have Azad Kashmir, you would not have Gilgit-Baltistan, and you would not have the Kashmir dispute today. Because as I walked into the hall, General Jaffrey was talking about Hyderabad and Junagadh, and is anybody talking about Hyderabad and Junagadh? And nobody is talking about these two. Kashmir has survived because of Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. Kashmir has survived because of the sacrifices of the people of Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. I remind you of this war because we attained unmistakable victory against the Indian troops and the troops of Maharaja. Let me also tell you that after India had occupied the Jammu and Kashmir territory, or the part of it, on October the 27th, there was a pushback. They wanted to reoccupy that territory, Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Kashmir. And Indian regular forces were fighting these, what we used to call it, Azad Kashmir Regimental Force, and other irregular troops. And in 1948, we had the assistance from Pakistan in different forms. The reason I mention it is that once you got a military victory, a clear military victory against the Indian Army, the Indian Army's attack to recapture the territory was repulsed. Let me also tell you that during the period 1947 and 1957, 10 years, Pakistan was a newborn state. It did not have resources. I'm told by many people and many historians that when Pakistan started the government in Karachi, they did not have paper pens and they did not have officers, and they would sit in the vans, open vans, and run the secretariat from there. And yet, in 10 years, they were able to get a dozen Security Council resolutions passed. Just compare and contrast it with the strength Pakistan has today. If in those days, with very limited resources, you could attain diplomatic and military victory, you can do it today as well. You can do it now. What India did during that period, after getting defeated both diplomatically and militarily, it came up with many devices. One of the devices was that they imposed what international lawyers would call constitutional occupation of the part of the Indian Kashmir, or Jammu and Kashmir. And secondly, for a long time, they did not fight a war with Pakistan. In fact, I was told, and I've read it in some books, that Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, warned his troops not to go into the territory of Azad Kashmir or Gilgit-Baltistan, particularly Azad Kashmir, because he warned his soldiers that this territory would become your graveyard. That was the kind of military might that you had. In that state of weakness, when you were a fragile state. Now, let's move to December the 17th, 1971. India severed Pakistan into two parts. And after reducing the size of Pakistan, and from their point of view, after attaining a decisive victory, Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister at that time, threatened that India, would work to disintegrate the rest of Pakistan. And at that time, that the disintegration of Pakistan was the unfinished business of 1971 war. And they thought that Pakistan had been made vulnerable. Pakistan was vulnerable, and that's why it started investing in its defense and national security, and it came up with the nuclear weapons. Let me take you to May the 28th, 1998. Pakistan acquired nuclear capability. And at that time, Pakistan felt that it had become invulnerable to Indian attack because you had established credible deterrence vis-a-vis India. Now, while you felt invulnerable, India thought that they must go around this deterrent. They did not want to accept or endorse or recognize parity with Pakistan, strategic parity with Pakistan. They wanted to puncture this inviolability or invulnerability of Pakistan. Now, I have given you these 3 dates, which are very seminal in our history. But let me also tell you, here I want to underline that since 1998, the state of Pakistan, and particularly after 1999, you have been wearing this armor of nuclear deterrence, and you feel safe, and you are developing your conventional capability. But at the same time, I think that most of the people, and I'm saying it loudly, have a defeatist mindset. They do not see themselves, I'm talking with the citizens of Pakistan, they do not see themselves as a proud, as a great nation, as a nation that was born in 1947, which had strong convictions, and which was confident that it would carve a prominent, a strong position in the comity of nations. And therefore, when you talk to the people in Pakistan, they would cite the rise and ascendancy of India. And they would cite 101 reasons why Pakistan should be perceived as a weak country. Let me go straight to the situation in the Indian-occupied Kashmir. Right now, Indian actions on August the 5th was not a sudden, surprising development. India had been preparing for this action for the past 5 years, and it has been proclaiming to the media, to the political rallies, to the world at large, to Pakistan in particular, that these are the steps that it's going to take. In fact, I recall that on the 23rd of June, immediately after the completion of the electoral cycle in India, this very think tank had organized a seminar like this. And I like to refer people back to the remarks that I made. And in those remarks, I predicted point by point what India would do, because at that time, some people were saying that a stronger Modi and a more powerful BJP would have a mandate to resolve the Jammu and Kashmir dispute, that it would engage Pakistan. And I'll refer you to my remarks, what I said at that time, and compare it with what happened on August the 5th. But let me tell you, two things happened on that day, and we must have some clarity about it. India rescinded Article 370, and everybody knows about it. Well, most of the people do not know that there was no autonomy to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. In fact, this was an evil pact. Article 370 was an evil pact between Sheikh Abdullah and Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru to enslave the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And on August the 5th this year, the Bharatiya Janata Party stabbed those Indian loyalists in Kashmir in the back. This is what happened. And the other article is Article 35A, and that article is important because that article contained rights of the Kashmiris relating to acquisition of property, permanent residence, education, and employment. They had not been given by India to the people of Kashmir. India took them away. India robbed them. And these inherent rights of the Kashmiris date back to 1927. What actually happened on August the 5th and the weeks preceding August the 5th was a full-fledged invasion of the territory, reoccupation of the territory in order to consolidate India's rule, and there was this big, elaborate plan to colonize the territory, because India announced that the state of the occupied territory had been bifurcated against the will of the people, and that from that point onwards, Hindus from all over India would be settled in that territory, and they would like to replicate, I mean, they didn't say that, but everybody said that they would replicate the experiment in the West Bank. Illegal settlements, eroding the rights of the Kashmiris, eroding their right to self-determination, eroding their sovereignty and their will to determine their political future. Everybody is familiar with the situation which is prevalent in the IOK right now. There is a month-long siege there. There's a lockdown. There are arrests. According to the information that we have received, more than 10,000 people have been detained, and these include all segments of society. You have former lawmakers in the local government, you have businessmen, you have academics, you have students, you have lawyers, you have women activists, you have children who are 12, 13, or 14 years old. Everybody knows the horrendous situation that prevails in Kashmir today. What I want to underline is the people are talking about a war in the future tense. They're talking about the possibility of a war. And I say, we are already in a state of war. This is a different kind of war. The Indian-occupied Kashmir has been attacked. There is hostile fire across the line of control every now and then, resulting in casualties and injuries and destruction of property. Cluster munitions have been used. There's a declared war against Pakistan in the form of proxies that are operating on behalf of India. There are Indian-sponsored terrorist attacks in all parts of Pakistan. And they have talked openly about a hybrid war against Pakistan, which would lead to an implosion and therefore the collapse of the state of Pakistan. We are in a state of war. And an attack on the Indian-occupied territory is an attack on Pakistan. Let me tell you that the response of the international community to the developments in the Indian-occupied Kashmir has been mixed. We thank the government of Pakistan for initiating punitive measures against India in the form of downgradation of diplomatic relations and suspension or termination of trade or transportation links, and they are contemplating further measures. Pakistan, with great endeavor and ingenuity, was able to go to the Security Council and was able to make an informal session of the Security Council possible with the help of China. This was no ordinary achievement because India had been lobbying for days and weeks to block this kind of session in the Security Council. The international community, its response can be divided into two categories. The international media has supported the people of Jammu and Kashmir and the stance of Pakistan for a change. After decades of ambivalence and silence or partisanship in favor of India. So there was this huge space which was opened for the Kashmiris and for Pakistan. And this is the kind of narrative that we have been striving to construct for decades, but we were not able to either construct or craft that narrative or project it to the Western media portals and networks. And this time, the Western media itself, when I say media, it includes think tanks, it means all those writers who raise their voices, they have crafted this narrative, this credible narrative for you. People in Pakistan were disappointed by the response given by the Arab world, because in 2 or 3 instances, the Arabs, instead of siding with the victims in Kashmir, seem to be endorsing Indian actions. And this caused disappointment and frustration. Some people openly protested. As far as the powerful governments of the world are concerned, despite the evidence that has been furnished by their own media, by their own diplomats and embassies, these most powerful states have been tight-lipped, or they have been equivocating. They have been trying to artificially balance relations between Pakistan and India. They have chosen to not look at the humanitarian crisis in Kashmir at all, or if they do so through the prism of Delhi. The diaspora community has been mobilized, and the people of Pakistan, from the Khunjra Pass to Karachi and Gwadar, have demonstrated unprecedented solidarity with the people of Pakistan, with the people of the Indian-occupied Kashmir. What are the steps that India has taken? Let's try to understand them. I think that in the past 4 weeks, they've been trying to give this impression to the rest of the world that things are normal, and they have been trying to tell the world that by brutalizing people, by bifurcating the state, by snatching all the rights of the Kashmiris, they are trying to usher in an era of prosperity. And nobody believes this oxymoron anywhere in the world. In fact, there are 2 newspapers, Western newspapers, who first cite Indian claims and then they give the facts. Nobody is believing India's false narrative, false stories. Let me talk about the next steps. And the next steps are that in the weeks and months to come, India is going to consolidate its position, and there's a grave risk that India would be successful in this and the world would look the other way. So be prepared for that. India is not going to reverse these steps easily. There's also a grave peril that India may try to convince powerful Islamic nations to give it an observer status in the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. I think that the major powers may try to coax Pakistan into accepting some sort of bilateral process. But that bilateral process, let me warn everybody, would be a trap. It would be a trap unless India takes back its aggravating and aggressive steps in Kashmir. I would say that we should not accept any bilateral framework after August the 5th unless India explicitly, in the presence of a third party, and preferably the United Nations and the President of the United Nations Security Council or the Secretary General of the United Nations, accepts the disputed status of the territory and agrees to go back to the drawing board and come up with a diplomatic and political solution of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. India's insistence on the Jammu and Kashmir being its integral part should be rejected categorically. I think from now onwards, we should move out of the gray area to the black and white domain. No half-truths, no ambiguities. Mr. Amir Bilal Sufi has already come, and I think he would talk in detail about lawfare. But what I want to say, the choice for Pakistan is to maintain and sustain its diplomatic campaign. It was good to go to the Security Council for an informal session, but going once is not enough. We should constantly knock on the doors of the Security Council until you get its substantive attention. That's how multilateral diplomacy works. And it is shameful for the United Nations Security Council, that it had to wait for a communication from the Foreign Minister of Pakistan to hold its informal session. It is the Security Council's fundamental responsibility, in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations and in accordance with all the relevant provisions of the United Nations Charter, to intervene and intercede in the Indian-occupied Kashmir, to relieve humanitarian pain of the Kashmiri people, to act as a catalyst for the establishment of a humanitarian corridor there. My message to all of you, and through this platform, is that continue to go back to the United Nations Security Council, the United Nations Secretary General, the General Assembly, and the Human Rights Council. You have a space there, don't lose them. Don't lose it. You have a space there. You have a legitimate claim there. Don't surrender it. Because India responds to two types of pressures. The military pressure, the kind of pressure that was generated in 1947 and 48 and in 1965. And it responds to or speaks to international diplomatic pressure. International diplomatic pressure, not bilateral diplomatic pressure. Let me run through these points quickly. I said that Mr. Sufi would be talking about lawfare. Lawfare is very important. My recommendation is that after internal deliberations here in Pakistan, after consulting the Attorney General, the Law Minister, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and other stakeholders, we should communicate with the International Law Commission, and we should explore the possibility of establishing tribunals for the trial of war criminals in IOK. A genocide is going on there, and a genocide has been going on there for the past 7 decades, and you have ample evidence. And collected, people are talking again in the future tense that genocide is going to happen. Now, what would happen when the curfew is lifted? For God's sake, genocide has been happening there in the Indian-occupied Kashmir for the 7 decades, and you have ample evidence to substantiate it. So I would say that as we undertake this diplomatic and political campaign, we should work hard to make Pakistan a strong nation. Right now, we have many challenges. One of them is to ensure, to guarantee, to safeguard the national security of Pakistan in a holistic fashion. And it would include such ingredients as your defense and refining your defense capability. Second is your economic development. And within that context, try to step up and intensify your diplomatic campaign on Kashmir. because Kashmir is about your nationhood, your sovereignty. Yesterday I was talking to an audience like yours, and I said, in the past, the casus belli between India and Pakistan used to be Kashmir. But from this point onwards, the casus belli between India and Pakistan is Pakistan. Because all these developments that you have seen since August the 5th are driven by Hindu nationalism. Our doctrine, similar to fascism and Nazism of the last century. I said very openly that Narendra Modi is a reincarnation of Hitler and Mussolini or Milosevic in the 21st century. Make no mistake about it. Watch Indian television and social media, and they say their ultimate goal, sitting MPs are saying, cabinet members of the BJP are saying, their ultimate goal is to dismantle Pakistan, to destroy it. That this is just the beginning. And they have designated 3 targets. The first target is the Muslims of India. These 200 million Muslims of India. They're being persecuted and tortured and marginalized and dehumanized. And the Kashmiris, whom they consider traitors, because they are Muslims, and they are also being demonized. And then there's the state of Pakistan, which committed the cardinal sin of creating Pakistan and dividing Akhand Bharat or Bharat Bhumi. They want to restore the purity of Bharat Bhumi. Make no mistake, they have declared war against you. You have to prepare yourself for that war. On all fronts, your defense forces, your citizens. I have told many audiences that Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh in its camps is giving military training to young men and women to fight a war against Muslims and Pakistan. And Bajrang Dal is their operational arm. Make no mistake, they are going to attack you. You have no choice, even if you make hundreds of unilateral diplomatic overtures. I would say that use the international space that you have attained in the recent past, this space in the realm of communication. Now is the time to tell the world the truth about South Asia, the suffering of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and the threats to Pakistan's state, and the threats to peace and security in the region because of India's jingoism and its hegemonistic designs. Can you recall any other head of state who possesses or whose state possesses nuclear weapons openly threatening another nuclear weapon with the use of its nuclear arsenal? Narendra Modi did that. In April this year, he said that he would obliterate Pakistan with, quote unquote, mother of nuclear bombs. He said that his bombs are not fireworks for Diwali. I would also say that reach out to the global civil society, and especially the Indian civil society, because despite all the restrictions imposed on the citizens of India and on the media in India, many political parties, human rights groups, civil society organizations, ordinary citizens have protested against the actions taken by Modi. You must establish an interface with those enlightened Indian citizens. And here, finally, I would say that think Pakistan, rethink Pakistan as a strong nation, as a nation capable of defending not only its geographical territory, but its value system anchored in Islam. And never be apologetic about your doctrine of war, which was given to you by Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and by the Quran. And all the pillars of this doctrine are based on humanitarian principles. Muslims do not fight offensive wars. They fight to defend their own people, their way of life, and they fight for humanity. So from now on, I would say it is your responsibility, the citizens of Pakistan, not only to safeguard the rights of the Kashmiris, by all means, but also to save the 200 million Muslims from the scourge of the wrath of Hindu extremists. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.
Dear audience, today we are discussing a very sensitive issue that as military chairman joins Chief of Staff Committee. Sir, I request you to please enlighten us with your views.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. President Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Chairman Kashmir Committee, General Amjad Shoaib, General Jaffrey, Ambassadors, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. Today is 5th of September. Should normally have been a happy day for me, as it stands to be my birthday. But unfortunately, today is also the same day that last month the monumental event of annexation of Kashmir took place. And now reaching a raw age of 60, and having been taught in many great universities of the world, both in the West and East, what was fundamentally told to me was the importance of rule of law, the importance of justice, the importance of freedom, the importance of liberty, the importance of freedom of speech, the importance of human rights, the importance of human dignity, and above all, the importance of human identity. For me, this is a moment of reckoning. For I believe that what has happened on 5th of August is a litmus test, not only for my generation, but also for the future generation and generations. And therefore, I am very thankful to the President of the Center of Global and Strategic Studies, General Jaffrey, for organizing this conference on this day on Kashmir. It is therefore an issue that is very close to not only my heart, but the hearts of all Pakistanis. For it remains not only a regional fault line, but it remains an international fault line. And therefore, the significance of today's event is obviously obvious also, I can see from the level and scope of participation that I see here today. I'd like to commence by paying deep respect to the brave and resilient people of Kashmir and their ongoing sacrifices and sufferings for their legitimate struggle, for their right of self-determination and those 8 principles that I stated at the start. They have done so in the face of the worst tyranny and oppression by any contemporary modern state. We have seen, and most of us have served to see, Kashmir as a land of roaring rivers, majestic lakes, beautiful valleys, and magnificent mountains. We know that people of Kashmir are hardy, they are aware, they are progressive, they are extremely loving. Kashmir therefore has the right and has been rightly attributed as a paradise on earth. However, unfortunately, the brutalities and atrocities of the Indian occupying forces has turned this heaven into ashes. Indian occupying forces are employing not only excessive use of force against innocent and defenseless Kashmiri civilians, but they have institutionalized use of torture and using instrument of rape as instruments of suppression. For Kashmiris, enforced disappearances, arbitrary detentions, and violation of basic human rights are no longer an exception. They have unfortunately turned into a norm. Ladies and gentlemen, since the latest uprising, which is now 30 years in going, since 1989, 100,000 Kashmiris have been martyred by the Indian occupying forces. Please spare a thought for the staggering number of 100,000. Of these, 7,000 people have been martyred in the custody of the Indian security forces. Around 110,000 structures have been destroyed. 23,000 women have become widowed. Over 108,000 children have been orphaned. 11,125 women have been molested, raped, and gang raped by the Indian occupation forces. This impunity hasn't ended. More than 7,000 unmasked graves have already been discovered, and only God knows how many more there are, with thousands of victims of fake encounters. But in more recent times, since July 2016, post the great martyrdom of the freedom fighter Burhan Warani, a young Kashmiri with just an age of 22 years, the Indian forces have gone on to a rampage in what is called an Operation All Out. This is not the name of the operation that I give standing on this podium. This is a name of an operation that has been given by the occupying forces, Operation All Out. There has been a mass blinding of the Kashmiri civilians. This includes both youth, women, and children as small as 8 months old, by deliberately targeting their eyes with pellet gun shots. And as a result, over 10,000 Kashmiris have suffered eye injuries due to use of pellet gun shots. More than 200 have been blinded in one eye. This is the greatest mass blinding process in the history of human and mankind. 147 women have been blinded. Ladies and gentlemen, it is horrifying to note that all this is happening not without the knowledge of the entire world, but it is happening in front of the entire world. And in this age of connectivity and awareness, and as a sane person, I find it hard to believe that those values that I stated at the start, they apply only selectively to the few, but do not apply to the people of Kashmir. This duplicity and double standards have been exposed. And if the world has to move forward, there has to be a redefinition of what we stand for as humanity. Atrocities and human rights abuses in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir have been explicitly confirmed and reported internationally by various institutions and organizations. And these are not small organizations. I would urge you to read reports, not one, but two, by United Nations High Commission for Human Rights, by All Parties Parliamentary Kashmir Group of the UN Parliament, the statements that have emerged from OIC, from EU, from Amnesty International, from Human Rights Watch, from Genocide Watch. But words have never made a difference, and today is no difference. Ladies and gentlemen, notwithstanding the hell already let loose upon Kashmiris, the Indian racist and fascist government has recently deprived the Kashmiris of their land and identity through abrogation of their own articles 370 and 35 alpha. This is an illegal, unilateral action by India without any consultation either with the indigenous Kashmiri people or Pakistan or the international community. This blatant annexation of Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir is a violation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions, 11 of them. It breaches international law as well as bilateral and multilateral agreements. Ladies and gentlemen, Indian Constitution, for whatever they believe in and whatever they have been telling to us, also stand desecrated in this case. This is because the manifestation of the policy of Hindutva, where India has moved rapidly from what was India to Hindustan to what is now becoming Bharat. And what they are moving towards is Akhand Bharat. The BJP government is brazenly attempting to bring demographic change in their only occupied Muslim majority state, and to prevent civilians from protesting against the brazen-faced violation of their fundamental rights. India has deployed an additional 180,000 troops, supplementing the already existing 700,000 station troops. This means now we have close to 1 million Indian soldiers in the Valley of Kashmir for 8 million people. Kashmir, which has been the most militarized zone on the earth, is now and has been turned into the world's largest prison, and may I use the word of the world's largest concentration camp. Ladies and gentlemen, Kashmir, there has been an attempt to silence it forcefully through increased presence of this armed forces. And therefore the imposition of this curfew, lockdown, arrest, not only of political leaders but civilian leaders, of total blackout, media, internet, communication, expelling foreign human rights activists, restriction the personnel of the United Nations Military Observer Group, suspension of civil services, increased brutalities, not only amounting to, but actually being genocide. And in doing so, whether there was or not the understanding of 2003 regarding ceasefire violations against Pakistan have been put through the window, and there are intensified cross-border violations and firing from the Indian side. And in doing so, they have resorted to use of prohibited cluster munitions. Now, if cluster munitions are used anywhere in the world, you have seen what happens. But if they've been used against Azad Jammu and Kashmir, I would like to see what happens. Across the line of control, and these cluster munitions controlled deliberately, targeting civilians. Ladies and gentlemen, Kashmir is not a bilateral boundary dispute between India and Pakistan. It was taken to the United Nations by India in '48, and it remains on the United Nations Security Council agenda for the past 7 decades. Kashmir, by all canons of international law, is an internationally disputed territory, and Kashmir lies at the heart of all issues in South Asia. This dispute has been festering for decades, periodically serving as a flashpoint for conflict between India and Pakistan. And therefore, non-resolution of this internationally recognized dispute has previously led to wars, as was enunciated by a speaker earlier, and near wars-like situations between India and Pakistan. Kashmir still remains an international nuclear flashpoint and an overarching hurdle for peace in the region. Pakistan has made relentless effort for restoring peace and dialogue with India, with the sole purpose of bringing peace and prosperity in the region. But regrettably, our neighbors on the east have averted all peace overtures and choosing the path of unilateralism and aggression. This Pakistan will not take, this Pakistan will fight back. The security situation in South Asia is risked by a reincarnation, as explained, of a Nazism-type pre-medieval ideology in the shape of Hindutva. This ideology believes in its own dynamics of chauvinism, superiority of race and creed, superiority of blood, and utter distaste for tolerance and accommodation. As a right-all ideology, it aims to destroy and kill anything which is not in sync with its own worldview. This ideology of Hindutva is dangerous to the core. The regional political structure in South Asia is therefore threatened by such hegemonic aspirations. Because these Hindutva zealots, they still romanticize the legacy-based physical boundaries of an erstwhile 1,000 years old Gupta Mauryan Empire and teaching of Chankya Kautilya, and therefore their strategic behavior persistently seeks predominance and domination in the region by relying heavily on a Machiavellian-type hybrid tactics simmering from the strength of hard power and added to it the nuclear muscle. And therefore, in over a period of time, India's attitude has turned extremely belligerent. The intermittent spells of military escalations between India and Pakistan have had their roots in geography and history and are manifested through bellicosity expressed by their political and military leadership from time to time. Most alarmingly, the strategic stability in South Asia is strained both by provocative and irresponsible behavior in our neighborhood. The recent statements by Indian Defense Minister indicating a circumstantial departure from their stated policy of no first use only adds to the precarious security situation in the region. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not a matter of if, but it's now a matter of reality that there has been a control of strategic weapons with a racist and fascist BJP regime, with its linkages to RSS and Bajrang Dal, which puts a huge question mark on India as a responsible nuclear state. India's emboldenment and strategic miscalculation risk the chances of destabilization with far-reaching consequences for the entire world. Therefore, this decision is detrimental to peaceful resolution of conflicts as well as overall security environment, not only in South Asia, but beyond. Right of self-determination is a legal norm of international law, which was promised to the people of Kashmir by India and Pakistan and the international community. And therefore, abrogation or unilateral abrogation of these rights marks the murder of self-determination of the Kashmiris. I can assure you, India will not get away with this murder. While such an action may attempt to temporarily tighten hold over Kashmir, it is likely to lead to an entrenchment of conflict between two nuclear-armed states and provide an unprecedented fillip to the indigenous Kashmiri freedom movement. It is bound to result in unprecedented anti-Muslim violence, not only in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, but for the poor Muslims of India also. It is likely to therefore nurture divisive communalism and internal conflict with prospects to engulf not only bilaterally, but the region and well beyond. May I say that India has started to play with fire without making itself fireproof. Ladies and gentlemen, India's unilateral actions and brutal suppression of indigenous struggles are illegal, illegitimate, and above all, unacceptable, both to the Kashmiris and to Pakistan. India has tried to cross the bridge, but it must remember that this is a bridge too far. And therefore, India's false propaganda projecting India's governmental actions as in the best interest of Kashmiris cannot befool the world for long. India's promise of graduated normalization of Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir are nothing but fake news that will not last long. As always, the truth will ultimately prevail. Ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan has been a strong proponent of peaceful coexistence. Since its inception, Pakistan has been an ardent adherent of the UN Charter. We have played an active role in international peace and stability based on universal values of which I have spoken about. Unfortunately, normalization of bilateral relations between our two neighbors is hostage. It is hostage to India's preference for heightened hostility instead of gainful engagement. The sensitivity and the ramification of a conflict between India and Pakistan has and should be realized by the whole world. To conclude, these actions are grave and destabilizing the effect not only in this volatile South Asia, but also putting a stress on the stability globally. From Pakistan's point of view, India's illegal action will not dent the determination of the people of Kashmir and Pakistan. Should India try to raise the ante, Pakistan armed forces stand ready and firm to take on any misadventure or aggression by India. Any such action will neither go unnoticed nor will it go unpunished. We have proven our mettle during Pulwama crisis, and we will not hesitate to teach a lesson to anyone who wishes to learn it once again. We firmly stick to our pledge for peaceful resolution of the Kashmir dispute as per aspirations of the people in light of the United Nations Security Council resolutions. We will continue to highlight internationally the Indian atrocities and violations of basic human rights in Indian occupation Kashmir. We will continue our political, diplomatic and moral support, but no option is off the table to the indigenous and legitimate struggle of our Kashmiri brethren. We will do what it takes to support Kashmir all the way. I am confident that our collective struggle will bear fruit in the realization of our common objectives. Inshallah, and I thank you all. Pakistan Zindabad.
Thank you, sir.
The Honorable President of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Sardar Masood Khan Sahab, the Honorable Chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Zubair Mahmood Hayat Sahab, Honorable General Amjad Shoaib Sahab, Honorable General Khalid Jafri Sahab, Honorable Amir Bilal Sufi Sahab. I, as a member of the National Assembly of Pakistan, do not have the, perhaps, so much of a overall complexion the way that the two of my former very astute speakers have made in their own professional and I thought extraordinarily well presented briefs. I, as a elected person of a constituency from South Punjab, have always looked at the Pakistan political scenario in a way and a form where I thought that what Sardar Masood said, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah's life I have examined and looked at, evaluated from different perspectives. And I feel that I'll start my presentation. I don't have written text like my, perhaps, other gentlemen, because in Parliament we are supposed to look at our notes and not speak from a text. So I'll make the same kind of an address here today. Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah was an astute, one of the leading barristers of British India of his times, a gentleman whom one of his biographers has said that few people in the world have changed the map of the world, even fewer have changed the course of history, and perhaps very, very few have created a nation state. The Honorable Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah did all three. The state of Pakistan as it came into being, 14th August 1947, was indeed a miracle if you look at how the freedom struggle went from the 1920s to 1947. Because he had to put together a thesis, construct it against the powerful British, who were the rulers, and not only were the rulers, they were the great power of that day. After all, after the defeat of Napoleon in Waterloo in 1815 till 1914, for 100 years the British were looked upon as Pax Britannica, the peace of Britain. As perhaps post-1945 we've seen Pax of Americana. The Soviet Union was a great challenge, and now 7, 8 other countries are challenging it. So in that context of British India, it was a great achievement of the Qaid, and Congress was a very well-organized party set up by a Britisher in the 1880s, a man by the name of Hume. The All India Muslim League came into being through His Excellency, the Aga Khan, way back in 1906. The way that our country got constructed, we were handicapped from day number one. And the reason for our handicap and disadvantage was the partition plan under Cyril Ratcliffe, who was a jurist, who came to India just 4 weeks before the partition. And partition, which was supposed to be in June 48, was accelerated for barely 4 months. In March, they decided that partition would take place on the 14th of August, 1947. And in that quick time, because the principle, what was the principle of the two dominions which were to devolve from British India? Muslim majority areas would become Pakistan and Muslim majority Hindu areas would become India. And then came negotiations for Bengal and Punjab, because Bengal was a Muslim majority area, as was Punjab. But the Congress would not have it. And the Congress was always very devious in the manner that they negotiated, always in their own style, in their own way. And there was a series of leaders, Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, and several others. On our side, basically, it was Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And in that very intricate negotiation, they succeeded to convince Whitehall and Westminster together that unless you divided the Bengal and Punjab, they would not accept Pakistan. So we made the concession, the All India Muslim League at that time, the successors which we are now Pakistan. And in that division, something really extraordinary happened, which was that the contiguous district of Gurdaspur, which was majority Muslim area, and the contiguous district of Firozpur, which was also contiguous to what is today Pakistan, was handed over to India in that Ratcliffe Award, which was not announced either on Independence Day of the 14th of August, nor was it announced on the 15th of August when Delhi became independent Dominion state. It came out on the 18th of August. So this is which handicapped, disadvantaged Pakistan, because Gurdaspur gave the contiguity to India. If there had been no Gurdaspur Award, it should have naturally accrued to Pakistan. We would not have had the Kashmir problem as we do today. This is the start of injustice done right at the start by the then outgoing power, Lord Louis Mountbatten. Several books have been written. I believe one has been written in the last 3-4 weeks, just published in London. Perhaps they have given out this story as yet or not. And that from that day on, Pakistan has lived with Kashmir, and we always have said two things. The Qaid and my two previous speakers have pointed that out, which was that Kashmir is the jugular vein of Pakistan. It still is, and inshallah will always remain. Second, that the partition plan will not be complete unless and until the Kashmir issue is resolved, which it has not been till today. Sardar Sahib very eloquently pointed out those dates where he said how the present AJK was physically taken over by the locals and they defeated the Indian army, and the GB connection also, and now there we have certain documents which actually allude to what he has just said. But then came that treacherous time, and this is where again I think a man like Mountbatten, which my two other speakers didn't, I think we have to point that out. The injustice in the manner that the British left British India and left us with this very difficult time which we are facing today. And that was basically that they wanted to, the water problem came up when we lost Firozpur district. Water has been a major, and it'll become a bigger problem in the future. Yes, we've had the Indus Water Treaty, but there are no guarantors on the Indus Water Treaty. And with a man like Modi and his mindset, I'm not sure which dimension these things will ultimately lead. But one important happening in the 47 partition award, partition plan, whichever word you would like to say, was that from day one, we were handicapped, as they said that to start with our capital, they didn't even have offices to sit in. The Sindh Assembly was taken over and became the constituent and concurrently the National Assembly of Pakistan, where the constitution slowly got evolved. But what happened in 47 was that our first budget, East and West Pakistan, was only 69 crore. Our budget today is over 4 trillion. And that 69 crore, we didn't have enough revenues. And there were 2 or 3 major individuals who actually supported Pakistan in fulfilling that. Nehru and his cohorts at that time, and his cohorts are the one the BJP is proclaiming they were the freedom fighters, and Nehru and Gandhi are being sidelined because supposedly they were the liberals going with the secular democratic India as opposed to the Hindutva philosophy even today. So there is a re-evaluation of history of India, and perhaps the future books of the Indian historic, what they will be reading, the younger people, they may rewrite what were the normal textbooks, and when others are being built up as the new heroes for India, they will also start distorting the history in accordance with what they wanted over 1,000 years ago. Because I think in their psyche somehow they feel that for 1,000 years they were ruled from outside of India. And about 500 to 600 years, the Muslims ruled India, and they can't get it out of their psyche. This is how a man like Modi has arisen, with his ethos, with his ethic, with his philosophy of totally marginalizing the minorities in India. Of the largest is the Muslim, but the Dalits are also his target. The Christians are his target. Eventually, one will find that even Parsis will be his target. And all the minorities in India he will zero in on, because that is his mindset. It's narrow-minded. Fascism is the modern word of the last century. Neo-fascism. And how did fascism arise in India, in Europe? Because of the narrow-mindedness of the victorious after World War I. You had the Treaty of Versailles, and in that Treaty of Versailles, they got certain things written in which were primarily to get reparations from those who were defeated, which was the Germans. And on account of those reparations, the fascism came up. Extraordinary nationalistic, jingoistic, chauvinistic. That's what the mindset of Mr. Modi is today. Extraordinary. And you saw how fascism, if you see films of those days of World War II, you'll see how they were inspiring people, the Germans. I've seen some of those films. When he would speak in a stadium, 100,000 people, you would think they are all army people, the way they would root him and so on. Modi wants to build that kind of a symbolic kind of a picture where he gets up and people will follow him. Well, let's see. But how does the world see him? As quite rightly said, they have been slowly taking over the territory. SARC was set up in the 1980s, and Pakistan was one of the forefront to set up SARC. All other regional systems have worked, most of all ASEAN. But since Modi stepped in, SARC has been totally put off the table. Why? Modi wants to be the regional hegemon. He wants to be a dominant figure in South Asia, and the only people who have resisted him are Pakistan. When he as Prime Minister walked into Dhaka, he said, we are the people who finished the state of Pakistan. the state of Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. He took pride in it. And now I quite agree. Ultimately, his aim, objective is to take on Pakistan. And as the Honorable Chairman, Chief of the Joint Staff has just stated, he is mistaken. Because on a smaller scale, you saw on the 27th, 28th of February this year, how the determination, the grit of Pakistan reacted. When for the first time they crossed the boundary, the international frontier was crossed in 1970, after 1971, the first time. He thought he could do it with impunity. Under 2 acts in Kashmir, the way he has tortured, tyrannically, gone after helpless citizens, normal citizens. 900,000 troops are required to overcome 8 million Kashmiris. Is he a normal human being? He wants to put them into that kind of a situation. The word used, concentration camps. Yes, this is the ethos, this is the ethic of Modi and his men. Doval doctrine, Amit Shah, who are they? They only believe in cornering people, helpless people as normal citizens. They don't want to fight normally. They're afraid. The Kashmiris have become fearless. Burhan Wani's martyrdom brought about a total new enthusiasm in that country, in Kashmir. I won't even use the word annex. The word I like is intrusion and occupation of Indian-occupied Kashmir, because in my lexicon, the way I understand the law, here are the lawyers, they'll explain it better. Kashmir is still disputed territory, no matter how many divisions the man puts in there. No matter what he does, it is disputed under international law. Some of us at times have gone here and there. No. Our only and only point is, it's disputed territory as accepted by all those who are powerful, the 5, China, Russia, United States, France, and Britain. And it was proved after 54 years when Kashmir, the Simla Agreement came in, the Lahore Accord came in, the Islamabad Accord in. These are the 3 accords we did bilaterally. But in my lexicon, in my understanding, we go back to those original 48, 49 resolutions when we said 2 things. Kashmir is a disputed area, and it has been proved on the 16th of August when the United Nations Security Council met in New York. That substantiated Pakistan's day 1 point of view. Second, that the Kashmiris are there to, what was the second point promised was plebiscite. And what is plebiscite? Plebiscite is different to referendum and election. They will make up their own minds in deciding their own future. So the Kashmiris have that basic right, that fundamental right. Nobody can take it from them. No Modi, no Amit Shah, no Doval, not the Indian Army. The time has come, I think, for Pakistan. Pakistan has played its role, I think, much above expectations since the 5th of August. Our Prime Minister, he had a good visit to the United States. Our Foreign Minister has been in touch with his own people, yes. China played the key role. We've had excellent relations with China. We give it all the kind of recognition that we should give, and we should be grateful for what they have done. Russia, for the first time, became neutral and did not oppose. And then the 3 Western powers, US, France, and Britain, came along. Our Prime Minister has been speaking to Boris Johnson. He's spoken to President Macron. He's been twice on telephone with President Trump. These are very important conversations. And I think we Pakistanis must realize that despite it all, yes, we have one of the best motivated, battle-hardened armed forces in the world today. And they are, unfortunately, don't have the kind of equipment that I'd like them to have amongst the latest. For obvious reasons, because Pakistan economically perhaps, and this is where we have to really put in our efforts for the future. As a nation state, we have to compete with the rest. We should not look upon our successes. We need to make things more governance-wise, we have to make things much better. And here, I think our new leadership, hopefully, will follow that dimension of those who have been successful in the world, which is that when you work for public interest and not public gain, private gain, that is why countries like Japan over 100 years ago, like China in the last 40 years, and we have seen so many other countries which have gone and are competing now with North America and Europe because their leadership constantly wanted their people to progress, to advance, to economically benefit what are known as normally welfare states. The Qaid, if you read his speeches, he made over 100 speeches as Governor General of Pakistan. Economy, when he made his first speech at the State Bank inauguration in Karachi, if you see that, he laid the basis of what a future nation state should be. Unfortunately for us, we have not always followed that track. Somehow we have somehow gone a little bit haphazardly. The time has come. And one thing is extremely important. We've had 2 joint sessions of parliament. Both times, when we were threatened by Pulwama, there was a joint resolution of the representatives of Pakistan, the upper house and the lower house, and unanimously the resolution passed. The second resolution again came post 5th of August again, and when elected representatives of the people of Pakistan. Those, after all, if we go back to the 1947 assembly, if we go back to the speech of 11th of August, what did the Qaid say? If we read those speeches, if we look at the way, what he said and where we are today, I wish we had followed what he had said. We have in part followed him, but not in toto. And that is the gap Pakistan needs to bridge. How to perform and perform in a transparent way and perform in a manner, in a way, in a method where Pakistanis start feeling a sense of dignity, of pride, and of honor that we are Pakistanis. We can compete with all nationalities of the world. The time is there. Today is the time for this challenge. Today is the time for our leadership to convince those permanent 5 members. China is totally on board. The other 4 have to be partly convinced. And I think this is the time. Our Prime Minister will be speaking in the United Nations General Assembly on the 27th. Our Foreign Minister is going to the United Nations Human Rights Council within a week. We've had, as we have been told, I don't want to go into the details because all the details have been specified from me earlier, all the atrocities the Indians have committed, the torture, the militarized areas, everything. Now we have to move fast. And I think so far our diplomacy has been, in my opinion, reasonably successful. But we need to tread carefully, craft our diplomatic, strategic places in a manner where we can convince the people we are going, because we have a just cause. We don't have to be apologetic. Ours is a cause which is totally just, as was the creation of Pakistan. But to maintain that nation state of Pakistan, we Pakistanis, as I said, have to act with dignity, honor, and justice. Thank you very much.
Kashmir issue.
Mohtaram Fakhar Imam Sahab, General Shoaib Sahab, General Sahab, Assalamu Alaikum, and honorable guests. What the BJP government is doing, I think it has been summarized very adequately by the Chairman Joint Chief, that the nuclear weapons are in the hands of a very irresponsible regime. An extremely irresponsible group of people who have no clarity in terms of creating a framework for a reasonable and a responsible use of the arsenal that they have at their disposal. So it's a concern, it should be a concern for the international community as to how to handle this regime and its irresponsible overtones, which not only are manifesting themselves on the action of 5th August, but also in respect of supporting, sponsoring the lynching culture, which is taking roots in India, and this lynching culture and this culture of creating discrimination against the Muslims and the Christians is giving rise to a new wave of anger and anguish amongst young men in India who are beginning to now also resort to violence. And if this anguish, which is because of the BJP government's actions, measures, and sponsorship of irresponsible acts, is tied up with Kashmir, and it gets linked up. फ़खर इमाम साहब, अगर काइंडली मैं थोड़ा सा ये अर्ज कर रहा हूँ कि जो anguish young.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Fakhr Imam, Chairman, Kashmir Committee, General Khalid Jafri, Honorable Al Sufi Saab, Assalamu alaikum. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most important aspect of the whole crisis that we are facing, humanitarian aspect, which perhaps has been mentioned by all the speakers. But I think this is one subject which deserves to be looked into in depth, so that the sufferings of the Kashmiri people are brought to the fore, the awareness is created, and the pressure is brought upon the Indians to lessen the sufferings and at least give them the freedom of movement, freedom of communication with their kith and kins all over the world. On August 5th, at midnight local time, the disputed territory was abruptly cut off from all communication, both within and outside the world and within Kashmir, as India snapped internet and phone connections and shut down all Kashmiri television channels. A strict curfew was imposed across Kashmir. During the previous week, an additional 180,000 troops had been moved into Kashmir to join the roughly 750,000 troops already deployed in the area. And on August 6th, the Indian Home Minister announced that India was revoking Article 370 and 35A of the Indian Constitution, which gave Kashmir some limited autonomy and restricted outsiders from buying land in the state. There are many other reasons to be concerned about India's action of 5th August, but the international community needs to take special notice of the signal it sent to the world of the blatant and unapologetic authoritarian nature of the present Indian government, which has been growing steadily in various states of India. It is so reminiscent of how the fascists operated to override all opposition to the seizure of other territories, that it announces an authoritarian arrogance that must be called out for what it is. Modi's unilateral action reminds us of Hitler's takeover of Czechoslovakia, or Mussolini's takeover of Libya, Ethiopia, or Putin's takeover of Crimea. I think it is clear that the latest arrival on the authoritarian stage is India, and the so-called world's largest democracy is just a cover for a new authoritarian state. Under the new dispensation, Kashmir is to be ruled directly from Delhi as its union territory. The last time Kashmir was ruled directly from Delhi, from 1990 to 1996, it witnessed human rights violations on a massive scale, with extrajudicial killings, torture, rape, disappearances, firing on unarmed demonstrators, burning of homes, crops and standing harvests, and a complete clampdown on all political activity. The warning signs that this will be repeated are already loud and clear. Though very little news is escaping from the military cordon laid down by India around Kashmir, there are reports of mass arrests, including of young children, a near total clampdown on freedom of movement within Kashmir, and Indian military forces opening fire on protesters with live ammunition, tear gas, and pellet guns. Pellet guns are an Indian invention designed specially for non-lethal crowd control and used only in Kashmir. The bullets explode like shrapnel on impact and have been responsible for blinding hundreds of Kashmiri young men. Those Kashmiris who have gone abroad and have left their families in Kashmir are worried because they do not have any linkages with them, there are no telephone connections, and they do not know whether they are living or they are dead. Hospitals are turning the patients away due to the absence of doctors and non-availability of medicines. Indian police in Kashmir refuses to register the cases of civilians killed in custodial killings. The security forces barge into the houses during the midnight raids, and there have been cases of harassments of women folk. The long and dismal record of Indian human rights abuses in Kashmir had until now been routinely ignored by the outside world, but now the narrative has changed. Media outlets across North America, Europe and Middle East, Asia and Latin America either report from the ground or pick up news as it appears in the independent media. They show images of desolate streets ringed with gleaming new concertina barbed wire and bristling with checkpoints, and children injured and blinded by Indian troops firing pellet guns and even using catapults, and doctors and patients trying to reach the hospitals turned away by the soldiers at checkpoints. And an independent Indian news outlet interviewed a young woman who was forced by Indian soldiers to walk 6 kilometers while she was in labor to reach a hospital where she could deliver her baby. There seems to be no limit to the cruelty with which Indian troops treat the Kashmiri civilians. There has been a trickle of news of Hindu nationalist violence against the minorities and Dalit.
आप सबका दिल की गहराइयों से शुक्रगुजार हूँ कि आज आपने इस प्रोग्राम में मुझे बुलवाया, लेकिन मैंने रिक्वेस्ट की थी कि आई एम नॉट फीलिंग वेल, मैं इस हक़ में नहीं हूँ, मगर चंद फ्यू ये जो कश्मीर में इंसानियत की बहुत बड़ी बर्बरियत इंतहा हो गई है कश्मीर ने हमारे साथ की, ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि आज कहाँ गए हैं वो ह्यूमन राइट्स के जो बड़े दावेदार थे, आज वो क्यों नहीं बात कर रहे, इस पे क्यों खामोश होकर बैठे हैं। हमारे नस्लों की रस्साकुशी हो रही है, मुसलमान को ही क्यों, वहाँ पे कश्मीर में मसीही भी हैं, हिंदू भी हैं, सिख भी हैं, तमाम मिनॉरिटीज़ है, लेकिन वहाँ पे क्यों इसी तरह की बारबियत हो रही है और क्यों नहीं یورپی یونین, انٹرنیشنل دنیا کیوں نہیں آواز اٹھا رہی, کیوں نہیں ہمارے ساتھ کھڑی ہوگی. لیکن مودی صاحب کو یہ اندازہ نہیں ہے کہ اس نے انسانیت کی کتنی بڑی اخیر کر دی ہے, کہ ظلم کی, کہ ہماری نسل کشی کو اس نے بربادی کی طرف لے گیا ہے. اور میں خاص کر جو بے نہتے ہمارے بہنوں بھائی جن کی عزتیں آبرو ہوئی, ان کے لیے دعائے خیر بھی کرتا ہوں, اور دل کی گہرائیوں سے افسوس بھی ہم کرتے. دعا گو ہوں, میری طبیعت نہیں ٹھیک, میں نہیں بات کر سکتا. تھینک یو بہت بہت. السلام علیکم.
Now I would invite Mr. Pratap, please come forward and address the audience.
السلام علیکم. واحرو جی کا خالصہ. پہلے بات کروں گا انسانیت پہ. جب ہم اپنی ماں, اور ہم یہی چاہتے ہیں کہ ہمیں ہر جگہ پہ آزادی ملے. آج سے 15 دن پہلے میں نے ایک پروگرام کیا تھا ادھر ایک ریلی پہ, کشمیر کے ریلی پہ. تو میں نے یہی بات کی تھی کہ ہم جتنے بھی سکھ کمیونٹی ہیں کشمیر بھائیوں کے ساتھ کھڑے ہیں, اور وہ ان کے بہنیں ہماری بہنیں ہیں, اور ان کی بیٹیاں ہماری بیٹی ہیں. ہم مرد دم تک ان کے ساتھ شانہ بشانہ کھڑے رہیں گے. ہم آزادی چاہتے ہیں, لیکن ہم پرامن آزادی چاہتے ہیں. پرامن آزادی جو ہے, ہر کسی کا اپنا حق ہوتا ہے کہ وہ اپنے لیے آزادی مانگے. ہم خالستان بھی چاہتے ہیں کہ خالستان بھی آزاد ہو اور کشمیر بھی آزاد ہو. ہمارے بابا گرو نانک نے انسانیت پہ درس دی ہے, اور انہوں نے کہا ہے آپ جدھر بھی ظلم ہوتا ہے آپ ان کے خلاف اٹھ کے کھڑے ہونا. انہوں نے یہ نہیں کہا کہ ان کے خلاف کھڑے نہیں ہونا, انہوں نے کہا ہے کہ ان کے خلاف اٹھ کے کھڑے ہونا ہے آپ لوگوں نے, اور جو ظلم کرتا ہے ان کو آپ لوگ چھوڑنا نہیں ہے ان لوگوں کے. تو ہم جتنے بھی سکھ کمیونٹی ہیں کشمیری بھائیوں کے ساتھ کھڑے ہیں اور شانہ بشانہ کھڑے رہیں گے. انشاءاللہ ہم سے جتنا بھی ہو سکے, جو ہمارے پیغمبروں کی تعلیمات ہیں, جو ہمارے بار بار ہم یہی کہہ رہے ہیں, جتنے بھی ہمارے پیغمبروں نے ہمیں یہی تعلیم دی ہے کہ ان کی سیوا کریں. اگر کل میں ایک ویڈیو وائرل ہوئی تھی, میں دیکھ رہا تھا, وہاں پہ سکھ کمیونٹی مقبوضہ کشمیر میں بات کر رہے تھے کہ ہم بچپن سے یہاں پہ رہ رہے ہیں, ہمارے ساتھ یہی مسلم بھائی ہیں, بہن بھائیوں کی طرح ہم رہ رہے ہیں, اور ان کی بیٹیوں کا بچانا ہمارا پہلا فریضہ ہے. ہم ان کو ضرور بچائیں گے. ان کو گھروں میں ہم راشن تقسیم کریں گے, ان کی بچوں کو ہم سکول بھیجیں گے. ان چیزوں سے ہم کبھی بھی پیچھے نہیں ہٹیں گے. پاکستان سکھ کمیونٹی کی طرف سے میں بھی ان کو یہی کہنا چاہتا ہوں, سول سوسائٹی, انڈیا کی جو سول سوسائٹی ہے, ان کو بھی یہی کہنا چاہتا ہوں کہ آپ اٹھ کھڑے ہوں ان مظلوموں کے ساتھ. پاکستان میں بھی ہم سکھ کمیونٹی ان کے ساتھ کھڑے ہیں, اور شانہ بشانہ انشاءاللہ کھڑے رہیں گے. واحگرو جی کا خالصہ, واحگرو جی کی فتح. پاکستان زندہ باد, پاکستان پائندہ باد.
To you, the next speaker of the conference, Ambassador Abdul Basit, former High Commissioner of Pakistan to India and former President of the Islamabad Policy Research Institute. He joined the Foreign Service of Pakistan in 1982. Sir, please come on the stage. Kashmir issue.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. What a pleasure to be here, to be speaking on this very important subject at this very important conference. The great Chinese military strategist once said, Mr. Sun Tzu, that between stimulus and response, we have the freedom to choose. On the 5th of August this year, the Indian government took a drastic decision vis-a-vis Jammu and Kashmir, and thus created a very dangerous situation in South Asia, as well as created a huge humanitarian crisis in occupied Kashmir. And this is something which has not come totally unexpected. If you look at the history, even before partition, when the RSS was founded back in 1925, their worldview was very clear. And even if they were not in power, they had done all those things which clearly demonstrated or betrayed their worldview, which was to make India Akhand Bharat. Whether it was the Samjhota Express blast in 2007 or demolition of Ayodhya Mosque in 1992 or the Gujarat massacre in 2002 or Muzaffar Nagar riots in 2013. All this showed that India is gradually inching towards more and more extremism in India. Now, this decision on the part of India, and then we have seen during the last 5 years as to where India has come from the lynching of Muslims across India, burning of churches in India, we have seen as to how this Hindutva philosophy or worldview is creating or
नामदु व नुसल्ली अला रसूलिहिल करीम अम्मा बाद फ़ाउज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम. Distinguished guests, audience, General Jafri Sahab, Sayyid Fakhr Imam Sahab, Ambassador Sahab, others, ladies and gentlemen, people from media, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You have been hearing the speeches since morning. But since my topic is rage in the youth, being the representative of Pakistani youth, I am here to tell you what we feel and how we feel. As you can see in the slides, we have the sequence that rage in Pakistani youth. These are some glimpses from my organization, which conducted almost 25 rallies across Pakistan in each and every province. And everybody on the streets, we used to appear on the streets to launch protests. But this time, the youngsters themselves, I think they are so much motivated that all these rallies which you can see, hardly in one or two I participated myself, and without the leader, they conducted all those rallies on their own. From Rawalakot to Karachi, from Peshawar to Larkana, and from Quetta to Loralai, and name the place and you will find, and Lahore, etc., Multan. Well, why this rage is in the youth? This is the question. I'll be speaking in Urdu and English language because I can see His Excellency Ambassador of Sri Lanka, who is very kind that he is attending the second session as well. Pardon me, I'll be very harsh. I'm son of a